Hey, thanks for joining me for another power station review. This time we're going to look at a upper mid-range power station from a company called Grecell. This is their 2400, and as the name suggests, 2400 watt pure sine wave AC inverter, and it has a battery capacity of 1,843 watt hours, I believe. I think it's right there actually. Now I don't know a whole lot about this power station just yet, but we're going to change all that. But first, let's get it out of the box and kind of find out what we're dealing with. By the way, this came in an outer container, just so you know how it ships, a big, really heavy double-walled box, and then this inner double-walled box. So it's very well packed. I will definitely say that. Looks like we've got an accessory cable bag. Nothing special, just a little canvas bag. Nice to keep them all in one place. A user manual, kind of a no-nonsense manual. Looks like it has the essentials and the specs. All right, there we go. It's kind of a big guy. There is a nice widely dispersed LED light on the back rather than one of those flashlight styles. I do like that. There is a grounding screw and an AC charging input, so no charge brick, another bonus, and a breaker reset in the back. All right, let's go into the accessory cable box and see what we got. All right, so we have got a couple of things. Anderson style input connector. So all of our DC inputs are probably going to be Anderson. And we got the cigarette lighter accessory socket there. Another Anderson to MC4. So this is our solar panel cable. And then you've got your large gauge AC cable. So I think we're in for some pretty decent fast charging on this, judging by the size of the cable they include. All right. Quick look at the size. I can tell it's just got 4 ventilation ports, two on each side. All right, so on the front, we've got the solar input over here with our Anderson connection. And we'll get into the specs for all that once I have a chance to really go over all that here. And then let's go ahead and power it up. I never know if these are a single quick press or long press. This one is a long press. All right, 56% state of charge. Nice big bright LCD screen. All right, so there's a mode button. I don't know what that does. We'll find out. The light for the back, obviously. Here is our 12 volt, 10 amp car socket right there. Looks like there's a couple of accessory ports there. I'll have to figure out whether those are 5521s or 5525s. And let's see, here's our USB port stack. I believe we've got a couple of Type C's and a couple of Type A's. I'll have to put on screen here what those are in terms of watt output and whether or not the Type C's are input and output or not. And then we have got, let's see, 4 AC ports. Doesn't say on the front what they are rated for, at least not that I can see. All right, no, doesn't tell me. So I don't know if they're 110 ports or 120 ports, but we'll find out. All right, so that's about all I can do right now with this unit. I need to go figure out what it's all about, run it through the paces, and find out what it can do, what it can't do, and all that jazz. So I'll report back in about 2 seconds. All right, so I've run this H2400 through all the usual paces, and it has performed surprisingly well, especially in the usable battery capacity test, which I'll share with you in just a moment. Let's talk about some key features that this unit has and a couple things that it is lacking. So first, it weighs in at a kind of a hefty 55 pounds, but it still maintains a reasonably compact footprint at just 17 inches wide, about 11 inches deep, and just about 12 inches tall. Not bad for just under 2,000 watt hours of capacity. And they're using lithium iron phosphate battery cells, by the way, that are rated to maintain at least 80% of the original capacity for at least 3,500 full charge and discharge cycles. So what does that translate to in reality? Well, let's say you're using this thing off and on throughout the year, maybe adding up to a full charge and discharge maybe for 180 days out of the year, and you divide 3,500 by 180, you get something around 19 plus years of service life. And even after that, you would still have at least 80% of its original capacity, theoretically. So in all likelihood, the battery cells are probably going to outlast at least some of the other components in this power station. Now, the H2400 does also have UPS mode and variable rate charging, which is nice. So basically fast charging or slow charging. And that's selectable with this physical switch right there. It kind of turns on that mode. Now, the solar input capacity on this unit is up to 800 watts with a range of 12 volts to a maximum of 75 volts. And really, 800 watts is a pretty solid number for a 1,843 watt-hour capacity. So if you were to connect a full 800 watts of solar to this, you'd be able to fully recharge this from 0 to 100% in just under a half a day of sunny sky, or maybe still fully recharge it in one full day of maybe mixed clouds and sun. So it's good to have that kind of solar input as an option if you need it. But even at just 400 watts of solar input, you can fully charge this thing in a typical full day of decent sun conditions. So what does this unit not have? Well, it doesn't have any capacity expansion options. It does not have mobile app support or wireless phone charging. But beyond that, it is a pretty full-featured unit, as you'll see. So let's jump into the testing clips and see how it held up. All right. Let's do an AC discharge capacity test on this Grecell H2400. I'm going to have to use an extension here because of these little port covers. It's a really good looking unit, and I have to say I actually prefer this LCD readout over the LED readouts. Now the LCDs aren't quite as bright in low light. They're just fine, but they're actually better in bright light to read than the LEDs are. So let me go ahead and turn on the AC output. This should come on. I've already got a load attached, so that should kick right up. There we are, just under 700 watts. Let's check the voltage output on this. We're pulling 120 volts, so very good output. We'll check back when this is at zero state and state of charge and find out how many electrons we caught and what kind of capacity we can get out of this battery through the AC inverter. As a note here, the backlight went off on the display, as it does to preserve power, but notice how easy it is to read still, even without the backlight. So very low power, and yet I can still see what's going on, and I don't have to turn the backlight back on. It's very easy to read. That's one of the advantages of these LCDs versus the LED displays that most power stations use. So I kind of like that. All right, our AC discharge capacity test appears to be done. Let's find out how we did here. We got 1,753 watt hours through this AC inverter. Now this, as I mentioned before, is rated for 1,843 watt hours. So that is a whopping 95% of rated capacity that we got out of this unit through the AC inverter. One of the best numbers that I have seen in a power station. Maybe not the best, but a very close second, if I recall. So, fantastic numbers out of this AC inverter. Real quick, I just kind of discovered a feature on here. There's a mode button on front. You see we're charging at roughly 1,200 watts here. And I thought, since there's no app support, it's kind of a bummer that you can't charge at a lower rate if you're not in a hurry, to put less stress on the cells. But as it turns out, you actually can do that by pressing the mode button. You see a little leaf comes on over here, and then you'll see the input watts drops down to about 300. So that's very cool. So if you're not in a hurry and you want to absolutely maximize the long-term service life of these battery cells, you don't have to charge it at 1,200 watts if you don't need to. You can charge it at 300. It might take you 6 hours, or actually maybe just slightly more than that since we're at nearly 20% now. But if you're in a hurry, yeah, by all means, press the mode button, go back to full power, and we're back up to 1,200 watts in no time. And now instead of 6 hours, we're at about 79 minutes. So just under an hour and a half. Very cool option, and I like the fact that there's an actual physical button to do that. Hey, by the way, if you're wondering what kinds of things you can run with a particular power station, maybe the one we just talked about, or how long that power station can run those items, I do have a Google spreadsheet that I'll link to in the video description below. And be aware that it is kind of a work in progress, but I do update it with new information as I'm able to collect it. Now I've got it sorted here starting right out based on average continuous watts, but you can also type in a particular power station's rated battery capacity and the rated continuous AC inverter output numbers. And the spreadsheet will put a green highlight on all of the items that the unit can power, at least individually, and a red highlight on the things that it cannot power. It'll also calculate an estimated runtime value representing either the number of hours or cycles that a particular device can be run on a power station with the rated capacity that you keyed in. So be sure to check out that link below in the video description if you think that information might be helpful to you. And hey, If you do want to contribute device information to the spreadsheet, just put a comment in the video below listing the device and how much power that device requires, and I'll try to add it to the spreadsheet so other people can benefit from that information. All right, so we got some fantastic numbers out of that AC inverter. Let's find out what kind of capacity we can get out of the DC side. So let me go ahead and turn on the DC outputs. And we are already pulling 12.3 volts. Let's take that amperage up a little higher, just under 10. And we will check back when this thing is at 0% state of charge and find out how many watt hours we actually got out of it. All right, looks like our DC discharge usable capacity test is done. Let's zoom in over here and see what we get. All right, looks like we got 1,665 watt hours. Just slightly higher than that. That's out of a rated 1,843 watt hours. So that is, again, a very respectable 90%. So that is actually above average. So average I consider, at least on my test equipment, to be about 80 to 85% of rated capacity. And this is coming up at 90%. So again, very good numbers from this Grecell H2400. All right, people always seem to want to be able to know if these will dual charge. So in other words, can I charge through the DC port while I'm charging through the AC port? And you can see we're putting in right now, I've got the plug sign up there, about 1200 watts through grid power through the AC port, charging this 2400. And so I'm going to turn on a about 120 watt source through the DC here. And you'll hear just a little bit of a subtle relay click on there. There's a protection in there, and you can see this doesn't really hardly go very far above 1200. So it really kind of scales it back down. You really can't get the extra 100 and so watts, or you can't dual charge via solar and AC. And really, I don't know why you generally would want to do that, because 1200 watts in on this thing lets you fully charge it in about an hour and a half, and that's pretty darn quick. And you're already stressing the cells when you do that. So I don't know that you really need, in most cases, or would want to. If there's a practical reason, but this does not allow you to dual charge. All right, while this unit is charging and the fans are on, let's see how loud it is. Anywhere from 50 to 55 decibels. Anything under that, say 55 decibels, I really consider to be pretty tolerable in terms of noise. So this is a nice white noise. Now it does cycle on and off, so that's something you do want to keep in mind. And we're only charging at 300 watts right now, so I'm doing the slow charge. So yeah, when the fans do come on, not all that loud, but they do cycle on and off probably every couple of minutes. So something to just be aware of. All right, let's find out if the AC output from this H2400 is clean enough, noise-free enough to be able to power a guitar amp without getting a bunch of noise. So I've got the guitar amp currently plugged into grid wall power, so let me go ahead and turn it on. And I'm going to boost it about 16 dB, and then I'll do the same when we plug it in here. You can listen to see if there's any noise difference. So this is grid power. All right, nice and quiet. Let me switch it over, and we are going to plug this right in the front here. All right, let's switch on the AC inverter. All right, just heard the relay click, so we have power going. Let me turn this on. I'll boost it by the same amount, see if we hear any difference at all. All right, I don't hear any difference at all. It sounds the same to me standing right in front of it. So I would say guitar amp test is a pass. All right, let's do a UPS mode test. So this unit claims to have UPS mode. So I've got grid power attached. You can see it's got the little plug there. And we're at 100%. And you can see UPS is now enabled because I also have the AC inverter on, and there is a load attached. We're only currently pulling about 45 watts or so. I've got a little disk I/O test running over here on the laptop just to give it some resource draw while it's doing this, so we get hopefully a more accurate result, or at least a more representative result. And I'm going to try simulating a power outage by pulling grid power, and we'll see if the laptop, which has the battery removed, will stay running, or if it will just shut itself down. So we'll try it and find out. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right. no problem switching over. You see UPS is now gone. We are now running completely off battery power. Let me just show you. If I try to unplug and replug the laptop as fast as I can, the laptop goes out. So UPS mode definitely works on this H2400. All right, let's find out if this H2400 can handle an 8,000 BTU air conditioner startup. So I've got a little connector here, a little pigtail, because of these little spring-loaded doors. Don't quite let me get that in there, especially because they're nice and low, and this is a little bit of a big block. So let me see if I can fire that up and see if this will handle that compressor surge, which it definitely should, since that compressor surge on the startup is somewhere around 2,300 watts of surge. And this should be able to handle something like 4,800 watts. So this should be a complete gimme for this particular product. Let's find out. Here we go. Compressor's on. You can see we're pulling just under 600 watts. Yeah, no problem handling that 2,300 watt surge from this 8,000 BTU air conditioner. And by the way, in case you're curious, you can see that at 600 watts, if the compressor were to run continuously, you would get about 3 hours of runtime from this air conditioner. But typically, once your space is cooled down, you don't have to run the compressor all the time. It cycles on and off. So you'd probably get something a fair amount higher than that. All right, let's do some AC inverter load testing on this 2,400 watt AC inverter. So I've got it currently, as you can see here, at 2,130 watts. So we're pretty far into the capacity already, but I'm going to try to boost it just a little bit and see if we can run it for 10 minutes at very close to, or maybe slightly above, that 2,400 watt rating. But before we do that, since the fans are on, let's see how loud this thing is. All right, so we're pulling just under 60 decibels. So this is not the quietest power station, but it's definitely not the loudest. And since we are pulling well over 2,000 watts, that's actually a pretty respectable number from in comparison to other inverters in that range. So let's go ahead and see what happens when I kick this up a notch. We are very close, 2360. Let me go ahead and start the timer. Alright, so apparently no problem running at least very close to that 2,400 watt max. Let's see if we can push this a little bit further and find out where it's going to trip. I'm going to remove that. Let me throw a fair amount more at this and see what it does. We got to 2858, 2860. And starting to drop back down to 2,400. This might have some voltage throttling on it. Alright, connected my kilowatt meter. And actually, yeah, you can see we have dropped down to 110 volts. So it dropped the voltage on us in order to maintain that 2,400 watt output. Let me take some load off of this and see if the voltage jumps back up. Yeah, we're back to 120 volts basically. Alright, so we know that this does have one of those voltage boosters in there. I'll have to check the manual to see if there's any way to disable that, but I don't think there is. Now, I did also run the H2400 through my 24-hour DC fridge test, and that's basically where I see if it's going to run a fully stocked DC fridge with a 40-degree Fahrenheit set point in a cool environment, which effectively puts a lot of time between compressor cycles to see if the power station will assume that nothing is connected and then just do an auto shutdown. Now, the H2400 did pass that test without any issue. I actually kept that test going for actually a little over 5 days straight instead of my usual 24 hours, since I was working on other stuff at the time, but it had no issues at all running a DC fridge and not auto shutting off when I didn't want it to. I did also test no load draw on the AC inverter, which is basically where you turn the AC inverter on and then let it run without any other load to see how much power it's consuming just to power the AC inverter. And it seems that this unit does consume about 23 watts, or just about 1.25% of overall capacity for each hour that you leave the AC inverter on. And that's a pretty efficient power consumption rate for a 2,400 watt AC inverter. Now, the warranty on this unit is still the common industry standard of 2 years. And in terms of price, you can get this thing right now for just $10.99 on Amazon US and that's using a $400 coupon that you can apply while it lasts. And I do be aware that pricing and coupon availability can and does change frequently, but this is the pricing as of the date that I'm publishing this video. Now at $10.99, that calculates out to about 60 cents per watt hour, which is a pretty solid deal given the excellent build quality on this unit. So I'd say that if you happen to have missed out maybe on some of the recent Prime Day deals, this Grecell H2400 is still at an excellent price point for a well-built 2400 watt power station with a lot of great features like UPS mode, variable charge rates, plenty of solar input capacity, and well above average usable capacity numbers, provided that you don't need things like battery expansion or mobile app control or maybe wireless phone charging. And for me, that's never really a requirement. That's just a kind of a nice to have. Okay, so I think that's about a wrap on this video. I do hope you at least learned maybe something of use in this video. If you did, please consider clicking that like button for me. I'd very much appreciate that. And now that I'm finally getting settled into my new rural property here, I've got a bunch of cool projects in the video queue, and maybe you'll find one of those or some of the other videos I already have up on the channel in some way helpful or maybe just interesting, especially as I expand into some new topics as I convert my large metal horse barn to a workshop, experiment with wind turbines as a supplement to solar, and a variety of other things. If you think any of those topics might be of interest to you, I'd love to have you on board for the journey, so consider subscribing if you're not already a subscriber. And I do offer my sincere thanks for stopping by and watching this video with me, and I do hope you'll consider joining me for the next one. Until then, have fun out there.